My husband's mother mocked my hobby business at Christmas dinner. Then she Googled me and couldn't speak for an hour. Barbara's fork hit her plate. Sharp clink silenced the entire table. I knew exactly what was coming. My mother-in-law had been building to this moment all evening, making small digs about my little craft projects, asking in that poisonously sweet voice when I was going to get a real job, contribute to the household like a proper wife should. But this time, she'd invited an audience. 18 relatives crammed into her formal dining room, crystal glasses catching candlelight, Barbara holding court at the head of the table, like a queen about to pronounce judgment. She turned to her sister Margaret with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "You know, Margaret, Natalie here spends all her time making little trinkets in the garage, calls it a business, but really it's just a hobby to keep her occupied, while my Christopher works himself to death, supporting them both." The table went quiet, except for the sound of someone's wine glass being set down too hard. I'd been married to Christopher for 3 years, building Atelier Nouveau for 5 years before that, but Barbara had never taken my work seriously, never bothered to ask what I actually did, how successful the company had become. To her, I was the daughter-in-law who'd stolen her precious only son, who didn't have a law degree, medical license, any of the credentials she deemed acceptable for someone marrying into the Thornton family. The fact that I worked from home, didn't wear business suits, didn't commute to an office building, meant I wasn't really working at all. In her eyes, I was just a woman, playing at being an entrepreneur, while living off her son's salary as a corporate attorney. The reality was so far from her assumptions, it would have been funny if it wasn't so insulting. Christopher's hand found mine under the table, squeezed, silent apology for his mother's behavior. He'd been defending me for 3 years, trying to explain that my business was legitimate, successful, but she'd never listened. She'd wave him off, change the subject, treating his explanations like a son's misguided attempt to protect his wife's feelings. The rest of his family had taken their cues from Barbara, treating my work with polite disinterest at best, condescending amusement at worst. His uncle Richard had once asked if I sold my crafts at farmers markets. His cousin Jennifer had offered to buy something from me to support small businesses in a tone that made it clear she considered it charity. None of them knew the truth because I'd never felt the need to prove myself to people who'd already decided I wasn't worth their respect. I'd built Atelier Nouveau from nothing, starting in my studio apartment, $300 in supplies, vision for handcrafted leather goods that combined traditional techniques with modern design. First year, I'd made exactly 12 bags, each one taking weeks, meticulous work, sold them through a small boutique in Brooklyn, enough profit to buy more materials. Second year, sold 80 pieces, hired my first employee. By year 3, waiting list 6 months long, being featured in Vogue's accessories roundup. Year 4 brought wholesale contracts, Bergdorf Goodman, Harrods, studio space in Manhattan's Garment District, revenue that exceeded $500,000. Year 5, the year I married Christopher, opened my flagship store on Madison Avenue, expanded my team to 15 artisans, hit $2.3 million in annual revenue. But I'd kept it quiet, not because I was ashamed or insecure, but because I'd grown up with money, seen what happened when people flaunted success. My parents had taught me, real wealth whispered, while poverty screamed. Most powerful people in any room were often the ones who dressed down, spoke least. So I'd never corrected Barbara's assumptions, never pulled out my phone to show her the Forbes profile, the Wall Street Journal article about emerging luxury brands. I'd let her believe what she wanted to believe because her opinion genuinely didn't matter to my life or my business. Christopher knew the truth, supported my work completely. That was enough, or it had been enough, until this moment, watching Barbara perform her contempt for an audience. Margaret made a sympathetic noise, looked at me with pity. That made my jaw clench. Well, it's nice she has a hobby to keep her busy. Barbara nodded approvingly, warming to her theme. Exactly. These little Etsy shops or whatever. They're fine for pin money, but they're not careers. I just worry about what will happen when they have children. Christopher can't be expected to support an entire family on his salary alone, and Natalie's little garage business certainly isn't going to pay for private schools and college funds. She took a sip of her wine, clearly pleased with herself for raising these concerns in front of witnesses who would nod and agree. Christopher's jaw was tight. I could feel his anger radiating through his hand, gripping mine. He started to speak, but I stopped him with a small shake of my head. "Barbara," I said, keeping my voice pleasant, even. "I appreciate your concern about our future financial stability, but I assure you, we're quite comfortable." Barbara's smile sharpened. "Of course you are, dear. Christopher has always been responsible. I'm just saying, at some point, you might want to consider getting actual employment instead of relying on him to carry the financial burden." That's when I decided to tell her the truth. Full story is linked below or on my channel.